Welcome again to Mystic Revolution, the things where we discuss all things mystical. I'm Susana Dumett, and my co-host is Wendy R. Wolf, and we are so glad you are here with us today.
Welcome to Mystic Revolution. Join Susana and Wendy for insightful conversations and guided meditations.
Before we get started, we like to do a little meditation, sort of centering and getting here practice. So with that, I invite you to join us. Go ahead and just close your eyes for a moment. And let's take a nice deep breath in and out. And just sit for a moment and allow yourself to settle into yourself. For the next little bit of time, hopefully we'll be talking about things that really resonate with you, that ring true to your heart. And as we talk, we hope that you feel like you are seen and heard and are in the right place, part of a community that really understands what it means to be mystic. And so let's take another nice deep breath in and out. And allow yourself to drop into your heart space. Turn inward. And envision a beautiful ball of light. A light that illuminates from within. That illuminates from your own unique expression, experience, the light of your soul, and know that this light aligns with the light of the divine, the universe, the God of your heart. And let yourself just feel that in your heart, in your body. Let's just take another nice deep breath in and out. And when you feel ready, just go ahead and open your eyes. All right. Well, once again, thank you for being here. Today's topic is discernment. We spent the last few episodes talking about what it means to be a mystic, why it's important here and now in this time. We've talked about our soul senses and what they are and how to work with them. We're going to talk a little bit more about that today, along with the very important topic of discernment. Essentially, how do you know how to make sense of what your soul is sensing?
I have a lot of things to say about this.
Yes.
Hi, everyone, and thanks, Susan. First, I want to say in the meditation, which was delicious, thank you, you said a really interesting thing. You said something about us each being unique.
Yes.
And I heard it. Did you say it that way on purpose? Unique.
I can't say that I did intentionally, but I'm glad it came through that way. Yes.
It's the first time I've heard it like that. And yes, we each have our own unique experience with our outer senses and our inner senses. And that is a really good way to start this conversation.
Yes.
And it's all about you. It's not about what we think or some, famous psychic thinks or the lady down the street with lots of opinions. It's just all about you and what do you experience, and what does it mean for us? That's a good place to start.
Absolutely.
You have anything to say about that, Susan?
Well, I think that brings us back to the soul senses and our unique experience, and that what each of us senses, what each of us perceives, is right and true for us, right? We are kind of all antennas, right? And we are picking up information, and we're also radiating out information. We get to decide, out of all the information that we can perceive, what is right and true for us in any given moment, what serves the highest and best good in any given moment, and so on. And this gets into the topic of discernment. We get to decide what is and what works in our personal and shared energy fields.
That's great. And, one of the things I wanted to talk about today is the different understandings of 3 different words of truth, of certainty, and of faith. And for me, there's some things that they are in common and some things different. So is it okay if I just talk a little more about that, Susan?
Please go.
What you were talking about, right and true for us, I call that certainty. Can I believe my own experience? Can I have it? Can I believe it? Can I let it be my compass?
Yes.
And on the outside, what I used to always like to say in my old apartment, which had this crazy old rug, and I'd be like, you might see this carpet as a blue carpet, but I see it as a gray carpet. And because it was so disgusting. And it doesn't matter. It's okay if I see gray and you see blue. And that's a beautiful thing about certainty. I can see what I see physically or inside, and so can you. And that, I think that is so important, because really, if I have my certainty about the rug, I can let you have the certainty about the rug.
Sure, I get that. And I think when it comes to, it makes me think of intuition. Sometimes I get a lot of questions. How do I trust my intuition? How can I be certain about my intuition? And know that that's something that I can true, and that I'm what I'm seeing and sensing is accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And so in relation to what you were saying, you can be certain if it feels certain. Is that kind of where you're going?
Feels like, I would use it to, sure, feels like with our physical senses, we just have learned to trust them.
Yes, we've
We've
learned to trust them.
that what I see with my eyes is actually what I see with my eyes.
Yes.
I know it sounds crazy, but then we see things spiritually in our souls, and we're just like, I wonder if I see that.
Yes.
And so if I'm certain about that, I see a butterfly, I see the color white, I see a marker, whatever I see. And then the question becomes, then it's not the end of the story, it's the beginning.
It's the beginning. Yeah.
The beginning of unwrapping it. All right, well, do I have colored glasses on? What part, am I seeing it or hearing it? Is it my information or theirs? We'll go through a lot of this in this section. But it starts with, I see a butterfly. I see a rug that looks gray. Then from there, and another cool thing about this that I love, because I'm called as a healer, is then if I start to move and change it, if I start to heal it, I can be certain, it was like this, now it's like that. So if I clean the rug, it was gray, and then it's blue. And I can be certain about that. And that's on the physical, but also in the spiritual.
Yeah, I love that. And so in your inner world, in your intuition, you can see it as gray, but you can have the perception or the notion that maybe there's something, right? Maybe your glasses, maybe it's dirty, maybe there's something that is also shaping the expression of color. And so you, with your intention, can clean it, clear it,
Right.
or just decide whatever, that's the way it is. Right.
That's how I lived with my rug. Yeah.
Right.
And then there's all these layers of stuff, but I just want to call out certainty. And certainty is, I consider that truth. Like I see it energetically. I see it as truth. It's a variation of truth in which I'm accepting the truth that is I perceive.
Accepting the truth that you perceive. And I think that's very important because there will likely always be people outside of you that will say, well, no, that's not true because that was not my experience, or that's not what this book says, or that's not what the people on television are telling me. And so talk a little bit about that. How do you navigate and stay in certainty when you've got a lot of, I'll just say distractions or other people that are sort of questioning you?
Well, it really is. I mean, in my experience, and I think yours, it's one of the fundamental parts of psychic training,
Yes.
of opening to our soul senses and training them, whether we do it with a teacher or ourselves, is to keep going back to, well, this book or this person or my ideas in my head, my perfect pictures say it should be green, but I just keep seeing blue. All right, well, I see blue. Where do I go from there? And one of the issues training psychics, one of the issues that I see over and over is that we're trained because of religion and society and family and cultural norms. We're told we don't see, or hear, or know, or feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's all like crazy. It's not real. And I see over and over, adults get very uncomfortable with the capacities of children. And it's confronting for adults to deal with the truth of their lives, reflected back. And so the children get invalidated, shut up, shut off, turn down, stop it. I mean, there's a lot of that. And so part of taking back our certainty is cleaning all that stuff off. It's an important part. I mean,
Yeah.
I can go on and on, but that's one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to dovetail off of that, the more we stop shutting ourselves out and we allow the possibility that what we are perceiving, sensing, seeing has a level of accuracy, or at the very least is right and true for us, the more that happens, of course, the more the certainty builds. We get that validation of sort of proving it to ourself. We don't have to prove it to anyone else, but we prove it to ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. We get validated over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
I say whatever. And just today, with working with a client, she said, I'm having this physical and medical issue. What do you see? And unrelated, I'm just like, there's something weird about your water. There's something going on with your water. Do you have a filter? Blah, blah, blah. We went from there. And then she's like, Wendy, that's so validating because first, so she's validating me by saying, Wendy, that's so validating because I got home and I said to my partner, there's something wrong with the water. And he says, no, no, no. And so I just keep drinking it. And now, so it's like, it's layered. It's like, she's validating me. There's something weird with the water. Mm-hmm. And then she's getting validated because her partner's saying, no, there's nothing wrong with the water. So it's so fascinating how it happens. And that we build certainty like that. And
Mm-hmm.
we help other people birth. There's something going on with the water.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And, it might not be able to be tasted or seen, but there's, if enough people are like, what's with this water? It really helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And having the willingness to just say, I mean, that's sort of in the beginnings of psychic training when, just allow yourself to witness, to say, to speak, allow the impressions that you get. Right. It might not be that you get this, sort of pinpoint, very sort of clinical, like definitive thing, although you might. Often some of these hints and these impressions that we get are through symbology, through archetypes, through just an innate knowing or that gut intuition, that intuition feeling. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And yeah. So we can go on and on about this.
Yes.
Okay. So certainty is so fundamental because it gives us the power to, against all the flow of the social and the religious and the academic programming and all this stuff, against our parents saying, no, you didn't see that. No, that didn't happen. Be like, I saw that and that did happen. On some layer, I perceive this. What it all means, we'll get to.
Yeah.
So that's the truth. My experience of truth is true for me. What is true for me is true for me. And then I like to talk about faith around this. Is it okay to go to faith?
Of course. Yes.
So there's all this energy about faith. And it's I used to think I had so little faith because I'm just like, I just don't have the faith to believe all this dumb stuff. I just can't believe all this dumb stuff. And like, the believing of some religions or whatever. And it turns out my faith is huge because faith is, for me, it's the same thing. It's truth, but I perceive it here. I say, this is true for me here. And then can I live it? Can I hold on to it through the dark night, through the day, through the night? Can I hold on to the truth of that? Can I live the truth of that? Can I stand for it into my world? And that is so powerful.
Yes, it is. And it, can you stand in it? Can you stand in your faith, in your truth, of your certainty even?
Yes.
Even if you don't have consistent validation.
Yes.
Even if you aren't getting told every other day that, yes, what you're having faith in is true. Hanging on to it again, as you said, through the dark night of the soul, through whatever interesting things that are happening right now in the world, right?
Yes.
Can you hold on to it? I love that.
So anyway, I'm excited to start here because it kind of starts to separate things. And why does it matter that we discern? So like we're set the foundation. It helps us to discern because if we're going to live from the inside out, I have to trust myself. I have to trust my experience, and I have to walk that experience if I choose to. And so we're going to start now going into more traditional discernment stuff, if that's okay. You have anything else about that before we do?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's so important. You cannot have clarity of discernment if you don't have strength and certainty in yourself. The two really go hand in hand. You have to feel solid in yourself. Validating, the experience of your life, that you have a right to be here on the planet, that you have a right to your own ideas, opinions, and levels of certainty. And then out of that, right, we go into discernment.
Yes. Yeah. And I want to say, it doesn't mean I need to be just because I have certainty doesn't mean I have to tell anyone. Right. I can tell everyone or no one. I can tell my best friend. I can just write my journal. I can just talk to the divine. That is my choice. It doesn't mean I have more or less certainty or more or less faith if I'm talking or not talking.
Right.
It sometimes helps to validate, to say it out loud, and somebody's like, yeah, I noticed that too. Sometimes it helps to keep my own counsel and just hold on and see how things work. So there's all the choices still. I just really want to say that.
Yeah, there's all the choices. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I also want to say, for me, the energy of truth, for me, I read it as the same. It's the same vibration as the certainty we're talking about, as the faith we're talking about, and as the trust. Trusting ourselves, our senses, our divine connection, spirit, earth, reality. It's the same place. It's just, am I on truth or am I not?
Yes.
So I don't know how you read that, but that's my perception.
Right. Well, am I on truth or not? Am I on truth for myself in this situation? Right. And in that strength of self and in my certainty in my truth, then we can choose to discern what the truth might be for someone else. And this is when we get into the idea of mysticism and reading and of energy, right? You discern what you're having an experience of us right now, and I am too, and we each have a different experience. Even though we're talking about the same thing, even though we're friends, we've known each other for years.
Yeah.
But we're each having a whole different experience of what we're doing right now, or of every time we meet, we have a different experience, and each are true, right?
Yeah.
Each are true. And I have to be clear on what my experience is before I can even begin to try and figure out what yours is. I could guess, I could be like, oh, I'm reading this, I'm reading that. But unless I'm certain in my truth, I could make up all sorts of stories about things. I could project a bunch of crap on you. I mean, like, there's so much, right? Or I could just assume everything's happy and jolly when maybe there's something really important going on in your life, and I'm not really tuning in.
Yeah. Now it took me a minute to figure out what you meant. Now in context, I see. It seems like you said in the beginning, like once I have my truth, I can start to perceive your truth. And I wasn't quite sure. And then after you talked, it seems like you're saying I can start to perceive what's going on with you and in our relationship, and separate out like my crap and my listening and my stories from the actual, like, what's going on for real with Susan.
Right. That's what going back to the discernment, that's what's discernment. That's sorting through the crap, right? Getting clarity, I'm clear on my stuff, right? Now, I can be much more present and much more in tune to what's going on with you or someone else, because my stuff isn't getting in the way.
Yes. And boy, does that make such a difference. It makes such a difference in my relationships, in my work, in everything.
Right.
Because I have Landmark Education calls it an already always listening.
Yeah.
Already, like, I have the glasses on. This is how it always is. This is what they always do. They always like let me down. They always lie to me. They always think I suck. Like, whatever. And we hear and see and perceive through that and create through that. And that's part of discernment, to be just like, because like for me, I was raised in a lot of fear. Right. So I'm just always like, if I'm like perceiving fear, I'm like, all right, well, clear the fear off. Because it's like, it just comes,
Yeah, it just comes.
Yeah.
And so, well, so we talked about certainty and faith, and I guess we're kind of now circling back to truth, because, right, there are layers of truth, right? But can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. And, we can talk for like 14 hours about this. This is so important.
Yeah.
Because, you're like, well, is it true or isn't it? It's like, well, it is true and it isn't. Because if I'm perceiving X along with whatever happens, that means X is happening for me. And I'm relating in a world of X, and I'm creating through a world of X. And so it's impossible for X not to be the truth of my experience. And then meanwhile, if I can clear X, like I said, just clear off the fear. If I can clear it and be like, what's really happening after I clear off X? I can see you. Oh, she doesn't hate me. Usually. She doesn't hate me. So what happens in a world where, everybody doesn't hate me or I don't suck? What happens, and how can I create that? And then this whole different world, this whole different truth becomes possible. I mean, it really can be book 1 of our lives and book 2 of our lives, before and after X, whatever it is, fear or whatever, invalidation. And that's the work. It's so foundational to the work.
Yeah.
And it's so important for discernment, because I just live in a world where invalidation, hate, fear, I suck is just how it is. And I have alphabetized lists of all the times and all the people, right? Like, it's not it's not like it's not true. It has happened. It does happen. But what happens when I shift out of that cloud of crap?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Or out of that focus, right?
Yeah.
Out of that focus
Looking for it.
and looking for it. Yeah. And it becomes unconscious, right? It's not like necessarily we're going, okay, I'm going to find all the people that think I suck today. But when it's in your unconscious, when it's that is literally the lens that you're looking through. That is
Right.
literally, there's a vibe of energy that you're holding that says that. So, yeah.
Awesome. And then everybody, and you can, I think in this conversation, it's so much easier to see that everybody has a different perspective.
Yes.
Everybody's standing in a different place. And one of the things I like about this show, just aside, that I really like about how we're doing the show is you and I have different perspectives, even though we have so much in common, very different.
Yes.
So we're offering a binocular view. And there'll be times it's just like, I see this, I see that. Great. Like that's even better. It's kind of annoying sometimes when I'm teaching young students and to have more than one, they have to be able to hold that there's more than one view. And sometimes that's hard. But this is designed to just, to be a play space, to be a comfortable space to get information and hopefully deepen. So I think it'll be really a blessing for people to be just like, oh, Susan and Wendy agree on this and see this very differently. And how cool is that?
Well, and I think to your point, different perspectives on the same thing often means we're just seeing different aspects.
Yeah.
Right. They're all true, but you're seeing a different aspect than I am, than another person is. And when we're in community and we can talk and sort of tie the different perspectives together, then we can get even more information about whatever we're looking at, be a social problem or a big event or something like that. We can work together to get a bigger, and I'm just going to say a little bit of above the fray picture that can help solve problems or come to different conclusions than we might if we were all just brainworking it. Yeah.
And it's one of the things I'm excited about as we call community together. And what I've noticed, because I've been calling community for almost 5 years, Mystic Community on purpose, and there's an expansion of human connection, which helps, and perspectives, seeing different corners of the accident or whatever. We talked about that in the past, didn't we?
Yeah.
And that's so healthy. And what's needed is, how we're talking about is the certainty of, I have a perspective and you have a perspective. And then we can have a conversation. This is what I see. Oh, this is what I see. And that brings us to the elephant and the blind guys. And we talked about them, right, too, right?
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
It's a rope, it's a tail, it's a wall, it's a side. Yeah. So this is just an important part as we start to talk about discernment. We're all perceiving all the time, all of us, inside and outside of ourselves. And we are not all perceiving from the same place, in the same time, from the same set of glasses.
Yes.
So as we hear each other, it's just so helpful to own that. And then I am a big fan of speaking from I notice this, not this is how it is to the end of days. I'm not like,
right.
I'm not the end all of all truth. If I speak like, well, this is my perspective today, then there's room for so much richness.
Absolutely. Well, that feels like a great place to take a tiny break. So we're going to take a little bit of a break and we will be right back.
Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Hey everyone, just a friendly reminder that on the first Tuesday of every month, we hold a Mystic Revolution meditation, and you're invited. Just go to our website and you'll find the link. We look forward to seeing you then.
Raise your vibration and energize your life with specialized Fibonacci tuning forks that deepen meditations and empower self-healing. Get your vibrational sound tools for personal enhancement at energybodytuners.com.
Welcome back to Mystic Revolution, and I am with Wendy, and we are talking about discernment, the importance of it as a mystic, as a human, especially in these uncertain, sort of noisy times that are going on right now. Mm-hmm. So, Wendy, I know you had some other things to share. Please go ahead.
Yeah. In this first conversation about discernment, I just wanted to talk about one of the things that I feel like we're doing in this whole show, which is understanding that what we're doing is we're learning to discern, we're learning to test, we're making experiments, receiving results. What happens when I actually pay attention when that person is like, has that cloud around them that I see with my soul senses? What happens when I notice that and instead of ignoring it? We can just start to pay attention and just believe ourselves and test and eat the fruit and, figure it out. And then I would like the same thing with the show. I want people to be like, they said this, I wonder, instead of like, I hate it, forget it, or I love it, I'm going to do it forever. But just try it, try it, test it, try a new perspective. Does it fit you? And then, eat the fruit, spit out the pits. It's all good. But basically what we're talking about here is like soul science, as what I like to call it. It's not on the outside science, it's on the inside. We're actually paying attention to what we perceive, doing stuff, seeing what happens.
And I think that's so important right now when we are getting so many messages. There's so much information. There's a lot of divisiveness and a lot of telling people what they should or should not think. And when we can test that out for ourselves, try on a new perspective, test it out for ourselves. Okay, well, maybe that's true. I'll try that on what I heard, right? But my gut is telling me there might be something else. I'm gonna try that on. And I think what we're alluding to is that just as we have experiments that we can do outside in science, we can do experiments within ourselves to test our own knowing, to test our own knowingness. And we can go deeper and deeper because sometimes our perspective changes over time or changes with different experiences. And every time we allow ourselves to taste the fruit or to see someone in a different light, we get more information.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, It can make such a difference.
Yes.
And so what this boils down to for me, and I'm talking about these words all the time, is it's direct experience.
Direct experience.
My direct experience, not theory, not my theory, your theory, not my past, not whatever your past, but actually what I'm experiencing directly in my soul, and letting go of the theory while it goes. And I will say that for me, I've gotten myself in some of my worst messes, my worst owies, by not being willing and able to let go of my theory. I've gotten so much better at this, but in the older days, I knew it was time to do this. I knew this was good for me, but I had all this theory about who I am, who God is, who God had me to be, all these kinds of things. It was just like, I can't do that. That's not who I am. That's not, even though that was the way of life for me.
Yes.
And so then that's an important part, I think, of the mystic life, is to keep noticing, what is my theory? What is my already always listening? What is my unstated assumptions? And notice them enough to say, okay, so that's a column in my way. Am I willing to look around it and
Yeah.
have direct experience?
Well, and I think when we get so attached to theory or belief, it really gets entwined with our identity. And in that, that creates sort of a static that keeps us from growth, prevents us from seeing and sensing more of what's possible, and is sort of it's a little bit the antithesis of being a mystic, which I like to think of as someone who is constantly who is interested in the alchemy of things and how things change and transform, at least part of it. And I don't know what your thoughts about that are, but of course in that, I mean, having discernment, they always say that change is the only constant. And when you are able to keep your core of certainty, even when things are changing, I think that's incredibly powerful.
It's very powerful. It's
Mhm.
very powerful. I can certainly relate to that in my own life, and certainly in our shared life, there's just an enormous amount of tumult right now.
Mhm.
And you could say that almost every day.
Yeah.
And can we just stay with the truth that is ours?
Mhm.
Yeah.
The truth that is ours.
Good.
Absolutely.
We'll be talking more about discernment in the next show or two.
Yes.
And you know, how do we know? How do we know where to go? How do we know who to listen to? How do we know how to do it? How do we get there? These are the questions that we're going to be delving into. So I look forward to playing with everyone moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us in this topic of discernment. And we like to close every episode again with just a little sort of a meditation, a little closing out. So if you'd like, I invite you to join us to go ahead and close your eyes. And just tune into your heart and be present into your heart again. And let yourself take in what resonates with you, what's interesting to you, what feels like, oh, maybe I want to try that piece of fruit. Maybe I want to consider that. And allow yourself to leave the rest behind. And let's let that beautiful ball of light brighten and enliven again. Knowing the truth of your unique light, the light of your soul, is valid, is needed. You have a right to be here and to have your truth. And with that, we look forward to seeing you next time on Mystic Revolution.
And that concludes this portion of Mystic Revolution. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to get notified of new content. And don't forget to like and share. Join the Mystic Revolution. Click on the link in the description to get more information or visit themysticrevolution.com. Another creative art production by Retro Earth Studio.
This series is really for you if you have mystic sensibilities or interests, or if you've been practicing forever. This is a place for all of us to join together